Okay. So welcome,
Okay.
Pranav.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Welcome
Go
to
ahead,
this
go ahead.
talk. Please go ahead.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So let's start with the talk. So I've named it inward and outward. So let's look at what inward is, and let's look at what outward is, and see if we can move from there. So I have divided the world into two ways of understanding. So one is what I call objective understanding. So anything that is processed intellectually. So we get information through some tools. For example, we hear something or we see something. Let's say we are looking at a laptop, and we are essentially looking at a laptop, and then a laptop is called a laptop because of some characteristics of the laptop. It looks a certain way, it operates certain way that we know, and that is how we conclude that's a laptop. So this is part of an objective understanding. So anything that we can understand intellectually, anything to which we can put labels to, anything that we can understand conceptually is objective understanding. And the way you do that is there are some mechanisms. For example, humans have these sense organs, and there's something called as a brain that tries to process the information that is gathered from the sense organs, and so on and so forth. And all of this is what I term as objective understanding. Now, besides this objective understanding, human beings undergo, along with that, human beings undergo a subjective experience as well. So there is a feeling of I, and when you start having these feelings towards these labels, it becomes my and it becomes mine. And these are subjective experiences. You essentially, there is no proper way of qualifying it, and that's why it's called as a subjective experience. So what is inward? Inward is nothing but is nothing but the subjective understanding that a person has. So over here I have made kind of like a pie chart where there's a human sitting right in the center. And this human has some understandings. So there's some subjective understanding for the human, and there's an objective understanding for the human. So the subjective understanding, say, tells the human about himself. It brings about feelings of I and me, and then we have this bigger cloud around that I that starts looking for my and mine. For example, a human can say my family or my house, and then far away from that experience, a human draws himself a boundary and says there is something that is me, mine, I, and then there's something outside there called that. So in that category falls these trees, I don't know, whatever you don't associate with yourself, like mountains, trees, uh, atoms, and so on. So that part which humans don't identify with themselves, humans consider separate, is called is what I term as objective understanding, because it doesn't fall under the category of I, me, mine, and so on. So this part, which I term as that, is the outward part. So what does a human typically do in his lifetime? A human can do two things. He can, I mean, it's a continuous process. Sometimes he journeys inward, so he asks questions more pertinent to himself. So he says, "Am I feeling well today? Am I happy? Am I sad?" And so on and so forth. So he's more stressing on himself, and he's in sort trying to figure out what he is, and trying to put some other things that are not associated with him, or things that are associated with him, he's trying to push them away. And he wants to know more about himself, and that is what I call as journeying inwards. Or a human can journey outwards. He forgets what he is, and he puts more focus on the object outside. He focuses more on that than on me, and that is when a person starts to journey outward. Uh, so a person essentially can do these two journeys, but what is the drive behind both of these journeys is I say the journey, the drive for him to either journey inward or to journey outward is a strong desire to know. So a person wants to know things. So the ability to know is there throughout in this entire universe. So everything wants to know in some way, and everything desires to know. Everything seeks something. Everything wants happiness, or everything wants clarity, or whatever. And there is always the propulsion for a person to journey either inward or outward is essentially this strong desire to know. And that is why a person keeps journeying either inward or outward. So where does science and spirituality fit into this? I say science is essentially the journey that a person takes outward. So a person, when a person really wants to know the truth about that, something that is not his perspective, something that is a perspective that is there outside. So when a person, when such a person who is in search of this objective truth is running towards this goal of trying to know what is out there in totality. So that is the journey that a person takes through science. So a person journeys outwards, and a person is in search of objective truth, and the goal over here is to know that I termed in totality. And what is spirituality? Spirituality is a journey that the initial step that a person takes in spirituality is a journey inward. So he wants to know. So just like how scientists wants to know that in totality, spiritual people wants to know me in totality. So they are in search of subjective truth, and this I term as journey inward. So, like I mentioned before, for both of these journeys, to know something, the desire to know something is the drive. So what does a scientist, what does a person involved in science do? It could be any random person. It need not be a scientist in general. It could be a politician as well. So the fundamental concept behind science is that you just want to know what is out there. You want to know the reality of that. So a scientist or a person, I'm claiming that everybody who is in search of the truth out there is a scientist. So a scientist is somebody who pursues basic sciences, like physics, chemistry, mathematics, and so on. A scientist could be someone, a big politician as well. Somebody who has, who is researching into the political sciences. Understanding uh, the geopolitical situations and so on. Somebody wants to know that. So he could try to understand the world through the lens of political sciences, or someone else, who is there helping out, making NGOs, they're building NGOs and so on. And they are working in this field of social sciences and so on. There are, but you can classify sciences into a million ways right now. And all of these, a person can take any of these paths, and the way you involve yourself in any one of these paths is you pick up your favorite topic, like for example, say physics, and then you dive deep into it. And in order to dive deep, the person has this intense desire to know, and that's why he dives deep into it. And and what he actually wants to know is this true nature of what is there outside, and that I claim as the true nature of that. So this is the process in science. And what's this process in spirituality? A person starts off based depending on their taste. They pick up either karma yoga, or bhakti yoga, or jnana yoga. One of these essentially different methods to start to begin with. And as they keep journeying, they feel an intense desire to know more and more, and that will lead them to the true nature of me. Now, this is the big question. So, are these two journeys separate? Now it looks like they seem to be totally separate. It looks like a scientist in that pie chart that I had mentioned before. It looks like that scientist is going out and out and out, and the spiritual guy is going in and in and in, and there seems to be no place where these two people meet. So it looks like the two journeys are totally completely separate. But it just takes one small thing to identify that these two journeys are never in a person's life so separate. So over here, initially I had drawn this sphere of my and mine as a small one, right? But it turns out most of our human life is spent in this sphere of my and mine. Very less time is spent in me, and very less time is spent in that. So how does this happen? Let's take a simple example. So whenever we speak about something, let's say it could be something very simple as my family. So there is always, when I say my family, there is a my part, which is referring to that subjective inwards. And then there is the family part, which is an understanding. It's a concept. A family, you say, is made up of a father, mother, and children. You have a concept of a family. So the family is the objective outward part, and this my is pulling, say, it's talking something about that person himself, and so this my is pulling him towards the subject, and this family is pulling him towards the object. And if you think about it, almost all of your discussions will be in some form where you bring in both the subjective part and objective part, because you are talking about my experience. Whenever you're talking to someone, you're talking about my experiences, you're talking about my beliefs, you're talking about my understanding. So very rarely is when a person actually sits within the me, or when a person sits within the that. Most of the time a person is spending time in the my and the mind region. So if you think about it closely, there's no matter what discussion we have, this path of inwards and this path of outwards is always meeting. It's happening unconsciously, but it's always there. Now, when when there is no clarity, when a person doesn't realize that even whenever he's talking about things, the inward and the outward are already there. When I say my family, uh, there is an inherent understanding of what I am is, and then there is some conceptual understanding of what family is. When a person doesn't have this understanding, when there's no clarity, then my family essentially becomes two separate things, and each of them become big. My becomes big and family becomes big, and then there is always fight between me and my family. But if there is some clarity, then a person understands that my family is actually a combination of this inward and outward, and then there is some harmony to his life. So what is this clarity? For me, this clarity is deep seated in understanding that the journey inward and the journey outward, both of these are driven by a desire to know. So if we understand that both of these journeys require the strong the drive behind both of these journeys, if we understand that the drive is because of trying to know things, trying to be happy, trying to know the secret of happiness, trying to know the secret of bliss. If we understand that both of these journeys are driven by the simple uh, means of knowing, then we know that to know is nothing but to open up possibilities. Like to know things. So in order to know something, you must also understand that there is something to know. If I already understand that this is it, that a bottle is in this way, then there is no further way for me to understand more about the bottle. It is only when I understand that there are some more possibilities, there are more different ways in trying to understand this bottle. That is the only way when we can hope to know more. So if we understand that the journey is driven by knowing, then we know that the secret to understanding me and my family is through opening up these possibilities. So if we take this simple situation of my family, we know that my is subjective and family is objective. And what are the constraints though? So what is constraining me from these possibilities? In the case of in the case of me, it is my identities. So something restricts me, saying I am a father, I am a mother, and so on. And on the family part, there are these concepts that restricts me from trying to understand what a family is. So I say family is me, my father, my mother, and my brother. Anything other than that is not my family, I say. So there's some restriction to there's some restriction that I put because of an understanding, because of a concept. So how do you open up these possibilities? So if you simply inquire, am I just a father? You're a lot of other things as well. You're a physicist, you're something else. If you just open up to that possibility alone, then there are a lot of paths that open up, right? And same thing for the family, for the concept as well. Like, is family just you and your parents and your siblings? Aren't your grandparents also part of it? Then you can open up some more. If you say your relatives are part of it, you open up some more and some more. And so you keep, if you look at this process, the process of unlocking these possibilities in both the journeys is nothing but an inquiry. So finally, if you look at the path of spirituality, if you look at the path of inward, and if you look at the path of outward, the running principle is the same. all you need is to understand that the process is happening through this through this desire of knowing, and and the way of understanding that is that and the way of unlocking that is through these possibilities, and the simple way is to just inquire about it. So the process in spiritual in going outwards and the process in going inwards is kind of the same. And so this is how you can have a harmonious journey of your inward and outward life. So some examples of people who have unlocked this and who have become, and because of their deep understanding because of the deep understanding of this harmony, they are able to go inward and outward to a very deep extent. So so first over here I discuss great philosophers who are also great scientists. So they say Buddha is one of the greatest experimentalists. So it seems when Buddha developed his techniques of vipassana and so on, he could feel stirrings within himself that were down to a scale of less than a nanosecond. So he could understand these deep mechanisms of the human body by just looking deep within himself. And then from our own Indian history, we have these great sages. We have these sages who have written treatises on all sorts of topics, on politics, on all the sciences and so on. You have these Saptarshis, you have Charaka, Sushruta, and other great sages who have developed these techniques and who have gained this deep understanding in so-called sciences, in so-called field of outward, from their deep understanding of inward. And today, in modern day, we have we have this term called scientists, people who do physics and stuff. But if you look at some of them, like Einstein, Schrodinger, our own Abdul Kalam, they are great scientists, but they were humble enough to inquire more, and so they have developed deep insight into philosophy as well. So now we have great scientists who are great philosophers. So as you can see, one actually helps the other. So the journey inward and the journey outward is so the understanding is that the journey inward and the journey outward that I defined, that might look to be going in totally different directions, is not really the same. And when these two journeys are harmonious, that is when you develop very deep insights. Thank you.
A deep philosophical talk. I still didn't understand. So how is that outward and inward same? I mean, I understand you're saying that great philosophers and scientists are, who's looking outward, also looking inward, and the clarity is there, possibilities open up. But how is this happening? What is the science behind this? Clarity, what is the science behind this?
For me, the science behind it is just to understand the cause of it, and the cause of it is, like I said, why are both of these journeys happening at all? So if you look at it, it is just coming from a deep-rooted desire to know.
Yes.
And it turns out, and for me, it turns out this when this deep-rooted desire of trying to know things is understood well, then you realize this trying to know is all there is. So rather than rather than a process of finding out, it's a process of knowing. So finally, when a person just keeps it's like going on levels. So every time you unlock a certain level, you open up infinite possibilities. So you keep unlocking, and you realize that in both of these processes, there is only this that is happening. There's only this process of knowing. And that is when both of these journeys become the same.
Is there a dead end for this journey?
The dead end is to understand that only the journey is there.
It's a perpetual journey.
Yes.
So let us take a scientist.
Yes.
And he understands that the entire universe is nothing but atoms, molecules, then quanta, energy.
Yes.
Of course, he spends a couple of $1 billion on finding out that quanta or energy or God particle.
Mm-hmm.
And let us take a Buddha or a Gnani who goes inwards and finds out ultimately the body is nothing but quanta or energy particles.
Okay.
So are their achievements the same or they're different?
It depends on, for me, it depends.
Both have come to the conclusion, same conclusion. So is the result going to be same for both of them or they are different?
So one of them, for me, the difference is one, like for the scientist. So he's never happy because he always wants to know.
Yes.
The other person is content in understanding that knowing is always there.
Okay. So the other person is happy in the journey and scientist is focusing on the
result. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, so I was saying that I was saying that at some point the harmony will come only when the person realizes, because only when both of them, one person has to realize in this journey outward and this journey inward, the possibility that the possibilities are endless, and the only thing there is this journey. When a scientist realizes this, he becomes Buddha.
Okay. So basically in the scientific discovery,
yes,
you are focusing on the object, but at the same time ignoring the subject.
Yes.
Okay. A part of the understanding is always incomplete because subject is ignored. In that sense, no matter whatever you discover, the discovery is going to be incomplete because subject is not explored fully.
Yes.
So the journey always is unsatisfactory and incomplete.
Yes.
Okay. On the other hand, the person who goes into subjective experience, it's called what is a spiritual journey.
Yes.
You have to realize that it's nothing but an object only.
Yes.
He is experiencing a subject which is nothing but object only.
Yes.
And the object, what he calls as subject, and the object he calls as object, they are one reality. So subject has to be objectified.
Yes.
Until he objectifies the subject and realizes subject and object are one reality, his journey is not complete.
Yes.
And once he realizes that, so then his journey is over.
Yes.
But the scientist's journey will never be over because he'll ignore the subject.
Yes.
Of course, if his journey gets over, who will do the business? Who will earn the money?
So what you are saying, Prabhuji, is that while the possibilities are endless in science, as he said, the more you explore, the more you find.
Yeah.
Here, the more you find out and objectify the subject, you find it's the same. So once the possibilities now, which were multiple, are now only one, and that is all that is.
Your journey ends.
Okay.
Actually, so your journey ends when subject is completely objectified, and subject and object both what are objectified is just an appearance. Then there's nothing more to know. The journey ends.
Good. So there's no knower and there's an end.
Ah,
So where is the harmony that that in science and the harmony in philosophy? Are they same or are they different?
You are asking to me or you are asking to Guruji?
First, I'll ask you, Pranav,
Okay.
and then let's ask Guruji later. Because that is a very important point. What you said is there is a harmony. And
Yes.
what we are trying to understand is how that harmony is coming into picture. And definitely that is a mark of success in whatever you are saying, that something is, it's the journey's success is in that harmony. That's what is the conclusion that you are bringing in. Correct?
Yes.
So
Yes.
how is this harmony in science or the outward journey? And how is this harmony in the inward journey?
Okay, I can give you an example of a scientist. So the reason, like Guruji said, the reason why a scientist is never happy is because he wants to know what is behind everything. So now behind everything a person can never know because there are infinite possibilities. But this understanding that there are infinite possibilities just falls on deaf ears of a scientist, because a person he still thinks that if he digs deep enough, he will be able to find out everything.
That's right.
So
in
now,
my opinion, it is not just that infinite things he's trying to look at. He's trying to look at the underlying principle for that infinite things, right?
yes. So it's a reductive approach. So it's essentially trying to find out the basis of everything. Like for example, in physics, we have something called as theory of everything. Now, if you write down the understanding over there is that if you write down one simple equation, you should be able to explain this universe. So it's not that obviously, like you will be able to, like, all these special cases will just come out of that equation. But essentially, the idea is this reductionist approach, where you should be able to boil down everything. But in order to boil down everything into something, that process for me is futile, because you're trying to boil down everything into something. So it's like trying to quantify infinity. So that now people believes, or a scientist believes, that you are able to do this. You are able to write down what infinity is. You are able to quantify infinity. You are able to quantify an understanding of everything into an understanding of something. Now this runs behind that person. This idea runs behind that person because that person hasn't understood this concept of infinity. Like, the person understands that infinite is something quantifiable. Now, for me at least, as soon as a scientist realizes that the infinite is not quantifiable, that is when he takes the first step towards inwards. That is when a person understands that there is a possibility of something more, because he's unable to quantify anything now. He understands that there is infinite things to understand about everything, and he understands that he can't understand anything. That's a bit paradoxical. Like he understands because he understands that he can't understand anything. Like that statement itself is paradoxical. But that is when he first takes the first step inward to me.
Rajita has a question on chat. Rajita, are you there?
Yeah, Guruji. Yes, Guruji.
Yeah. Rajita, you can ask your question directly to the scientist.
Namaste, Pranavji.
Hi.
So what about people who are not of a scientific attitude, or who are not willing to think in a scientific manner? They can't go inwards? Is it very...
So the statement that I was making is that it need not be just a scientist who does physics. Science for me is like it's politics as well. Science for me is some social sciences, service, doctors as well, because all that science needs is that is that desire to know things. So this is how a person's scientific temperament that we call in today's world, it's driven by a person's desire to know. So as long as we are in this process of trying to know things, then you're a scientist. So it could be any person. So if a person wants to know, he's a scientist.
So Rajita,
it is basically based on Tamoguna, Rajoguna, and Sattva-guna, I think, Pranavji, because a person who is in Tamoguna, he doesn't want to do anything. So he doesn't want to know anything.
Okay.
But who is in Rajoguna, he wants to do something. So such kind of person wants to know something. He'll be doing, thinking to go inwards, outwards, all those things. But according to Vedanta, they say we should go above all the three gunas, right? So how...
Guruji can comment more on this one.
Yeah, your question, Rajita, is what about people who are not scientific attitude? Can they have deep insight into philosophy? Okay, so that is the question. Now, the answer is yes and no. Okay, so it's not that everybody has to be scientists or philosophers to realize a higher truth. So the truth is discovered in two ways. Okay, one is called inquiry, making subject as object, which is more of Vedantic approach. It's called path of inquiry. The other approach is surrender, merge with them. If you can't conquer them, join them. So I don't understand anything, I join that. I can't understand God, I merge with God. It's called bhakti. So there's a bhakti marga or devotion, which is actually total surrender. So here I don't understand, I can't understand, I have given up. So see, scientists and spirituality, they try to understand and then finally they give up. So Bhakta says, I'll give up first itself, surrender. Finally, both will come to the same conclusion. So either you do a hard way, which is science and spirituality, Vedanta, or you do a surrender. That's why surrender is not about intellectual inquiry. Surrender is love, the path of love. Okay, both scientists and Vedantin work because of love only, love for the subject. Okay, Bhakta says, I want to love, I am in love, but I'm not bothered about understanding anything about it. So too much of intellectual understanding is not there. See, basically, our left brain is logical, our right brain is emotional. Okay, there are people, many people like Pranav, myself, and probably you, who are left brain oriented. Left brain is too noisy. Too much of noise. It'll keep too much of noise. I want to find something. I want to find something. I want to quantify something. The right brain people, oriented people, their left brain is less noisy. So they'll say, okay, I appreciate. I don't need to understand. I love this. That's also okay. These are typically artists, poets. So both approaches finally, the idea is to drop the sense of me. The me has to be dropped. It is not that we'll discover something new. It is that we'll get rid of some noisy fellow called me, the identity. Only a scientist will make a lot of money and name and fame in that. A person with spirituality will not make anything. He'll just be silent in the process. Scientists will put big equations to prove that nothing can be understandable. The equation cannot be understood at all. So big equation. One full wall of Rome itself is full of equations. Finally, I come to a conclusion. I can't understand this. That's the only conclusion I can get. So basically, I would say ultimate nature, essential nature of the universe cannot be understood. That is the conclusion. And one who is trying to understand is not there. So there's the conclusion.
So everything is energy form. So no need to understand, use your intellectual energy to understand.
No, but intellect will not keep quiet now. It will not allow you to keep quiet. What to do? It will say, oh, why is this? Why not that? Okay. So really it's not understandable. All those questions will come. Until you do. Yes, Pranav?
That final thing you said, really is it not understandable is like the final coffin in all of our heads. Like if we say that, okay, fine, I don't understand also, like we finally say, really is it not understandable? And say, no, it must be understandable.
It must be understood. See, basically, universe is going to be a perpetual mystery. No matter how you understand, how much you understand, still something cannot be understood. So Bhakta says, I can't understand. I am one with the universe. That's what he says. So Gnani says, let me understand. Let me go inward. And finally, you come to the one who understands is not there.
That is the reason Bhakti Yoga is simplest and the very easiest way to.
No, it is very easy to say Bhakti Yoga is simplest. But in the name of Bhakti Yoga, a lot of the emotional mind will create a lot of illusions. So Bhakti and Jnana have to go together. Otherwise, Bhakti itself will create a lot of illusions.
Belief systems.
A lot of belief systems, a lot of illusions. The real Bhakti is very rare.
Okay.
For me, as far as I understand, Bhakti is the simplest to start but the hardest to finish.
Correct. That's right. Exactly.
That's correct. Exactly.
You're right. So Bhakti path is full of pitfalls, illusions, wrong understandings, wrong concepts. Okay. So it is simple, but at the same time full of pitfalls. And it appears very easy for people. Bhakti means doing some puja, putting some flower and all. It's not at all bhakti. It's outward show. What is real bhakti is deepest love. The deepest love, it becomes universal love. It's very rare. And that can't happen with Jnana, without Jnana. And Jnana is not complete without bhakti.
And Sadhguru's teachings should be there to correct those belief systems. Otherwise, we'll go in a
even Bhakti Marga, in a devotional path, Bhakti, people think that a lot of things are Bhakti. Okay. So they'll have their own association. Mind will create their own illusions. So in Bhakti, realized master is important. Who is realized in the path of Bhakti. Otherwise, we'll go in sideways in Bhakti. What we call as Bhakti is just some benefit I get from God. It's my Bhakti. Real devotion, real Bhakti is very, very rare. The practice of Bhakti is very large. But real Bhakti is very, very, very less. Because the Bhakti also requires a guidance of a realized master. In Bhakti Marga. And that masters are also rare. So what we call as bhakti is just nothing but some practices. It is not. Bhakti is love. What love you feel for the child, what love you feel for your husband or your family, you start feeling love for the total universe, every aspect of universe, be it a stone or a tree or a bird. That is bhakti blooming. Very rare indeed is such bhakti. Yes, Pranav.
Nothing.
So anybody else any questions?
So the harmony, how is it then? Spirituality? That's the part you have to answer.
Yes, Pranav.
What I didn't get the question. Harmony and
The harmony which
Yes.
you are looking at,
yes.
how is it in for that question you have given an answer that
Yes.
the harmony is to find out that there is nothing to know. So what is it in spirituality? It is to know that there is no me.
So
Is that true?
spiritual guide is there. You can ask him.
Yeah, that's what I was asking Prabhuji.
What is that, Shravan? What is the question?
What is the harmony in the spiritual path?
In scientific discovery and in spiritual discovery. Are you saying that?
Yes.
See, there are two aspects of spiritual discovery. One is called ecstasy and other is called peace. Ecstasy is in the path of bhakti marga, devotion. Okay, there's a union. Okay, scientists will go through ecstasy. Okay, and a real spiritual journey ends up in peace. Scientist will never have a peace, but he can have ecstasy. Discover, aha, eureka, he can dance. But peace will be eluding until he goes inward. So in terms of ecstasy, there is a harmony, it's a common. In terms of peace, I would say a scientist cannot discover the ultimate inner peace until he discovers himself. So peace and harmony, peace and love are the two aspects of spirituality. Love is common to both spiritual journey or scientific journey. Without love, you can't do anything. Others, how do scientists sit in the lab for 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days, bother with small things? This is love. The love is common to both spiritual journey and scientific journey. Okay. The scientists have a discovery, aha, eureka, and he may behave like a madman. So that is common to bhakta and scientist. It's called ecstasy. But peace is exclusively for a inner journey through Atmajnana. I don't know, Prasad. I don't know whether
Yeah. So I have only said that science will tell you that nothing that you can find and find and find, but you won't find it. This is the only step that science will take you, because science can't talk anything about the subject. Science is by definition an objective understanding. And what science can tell you is whatever objective understanding you have is false. That's the final thing that that's the final step that science can take you to. From there on, we need a miracle.
Okay. Thank you, Pranav. It was a wonderful talk. Okay. Very nice.
Yeah. Any more questions from anybody else?
Rajita or Sheshadri, any questions? Okay, Ashwini.
No, Guruji.
Okay, thank you. Hari Om.
So Hari Om, everyone.
Hari Om. Thank you.